Welcome back, everybody. It is now week 12. Sorry for the interruption to service. Last week was a crazy week kind of for everybody. A lot of moving pieces. We weren't able to get to y'all, but hey, we're going to crack right into it this week. Starting off with the first game is going to be Alabama at home taking on Chattanooga. This is a very down week for the SEC in terms of like matchups. These are kind of like your end of the season, kind of get everybody healthy, get these games over with type of games. It should be an easy one for Bama, but at the same time, it's a stepping stone for Bama to further prove to the College Football Playoff Committee how good of a team they've come throughout this season. I think it'll be easy for them. Jalen Milroe is continuing to look better and better as a passer as the season goes on. The running game is finally establishing itself. Y'all can correct me. It was Burton was out last week, correct?
Correct. Illness.
Yeah. So maybe even let him sit for another week before you get ready to take on Auburn for rivalry week. But other than that, I think this is a really good get-right game for both offensively and defense for this team and for Bama to really prove again in back-to-back weeks after beating Kentucky last week as to why they make a case to be the top one-loss team out there in the country.
Oh yeah, Alabama is definitely wildly becoming one of the more popular one-loss teams in the country, and not just a one-loss team. I've even heard some publications talking about, head-to-head, outside of Georgia, with Bama, if they played tomorrow, like what would it look like if they played Michigan on a neutral field? What would it look like if they played Ohio State? Yada yada, what have you? And I think everybody feels like Alabama's probably not the team that you really want to see at this particular point in time. But guess what? Some teams are going to have to, namely Georgia. So I'm really glad that they did punch the ticket. Let's stay healthy. Let's get Bama in this real big game. Will be over with at the end of the first quarter. Milroe, he hurt his thigh. Ty Simpson looked pretty good when he came in. I was impressed. He even has some nice mobility also, which I just hadn't seen. He just hadn't played a lot, but they need to keep an eye on Milroe and his thigh. And if Simpson needs to play the majority of the game, they need to do whatever they need to do to make sure Milton's healthy for the rest of the season. But I got Bama winning big on this one.
I'm right there, which I got Bama winning this one by at least 40-some points, 47 points. It's going to be a big weekend for Alabama, but I don't think that's going to be the real talking point right now. I think kind of what you talked about early, Sean, is what does this Bama team look like going forward after this game? I think is the main talking point, because to me, I think, one, we are the best one-loss team. Oregon is the only other competitor right there, but I know we lost to Texas in the head-to-head, which makes things difficult for Bama in their next, projections getting into the Final Four. But we're better than Texas right now if we play them again. And I think we'll be better than Oregon if we play them right now if we win again. But I think when you look at this team, I think, yes, we're the best one-loss team. And also I think we should have the Heisman favorite right now in Milroe. I think people are kind of, sore-eyed by what we saw early in the year with him. But if you think about from that game where he got benched in week, 3? Going on. From there on, he's probably got the best resume right now for a Heisman contender and what he's done in this overall offense. So I think this team is a team to watch. I think it's a team that nobody right now wants to see. Georgia's going to have to come around and play with this fire when it comes to Atlanta, getting in that dome. But we're going to see how this thing rolls out for Bama. So some things to watch for Bama right now. But right now, they're going to win this one huge. Just stay healthy this week.
Please.
Yeah. And then moving on to another noon game, we got Ole Miss taking on UL Monroe. Ole Miss coming off of a bad game in Athens, taking on Georgia. And we'll get into Georgia a little bit later, but just running up into a juggernaut of a team did not look good. Jackson Dart ended up leaving that game due to injury. It's going to be interesting. It's another one where you kind of bounce back. Get your legs back under you before you got Mississippi State next week. Really interested to see how they bounce back, this Lane Kiffin team. You still got a lot to play for, depending on how they're going to be when we're recording this on Monday. So after the rankings come out tomorrow on Tuesday, to see where they stand, they still could put themselves in a great position to make it into a New Year's Six bowl game to get into and really have something still to play for. It'd just be real interesting to see how they look bouncing back as they keep that motivation up to still keep on going, because you were getting ready to run into a 5-game winning streak until you ran into Georgia. But you got a chance right now with this team and Mississippi State next week to finish this season out with 2 very good wins on your schedule. So I got Ole Miss in this one big.
Yeah, Ole Miss real big. Looking back at this game, Lane Kiffin, we all knew what kind of opportunity Lane Kiffin had to, to cement himself amongst the elite in college football coaching. And he didn't do that, but he doesn't do that every year. You know what I'm saying? He Lane Kiffin's it. All right. Now, granted, I know the quarterback got hurt, and yes, you were playing Georgia, but if you want to talk about being elite, you got to be able to have a little better showing than that against elite teams, right? I don't care whether it's at home, on the road, new site, whatever. You just got to do better. Here we go again toward the end of the season. We've got some coaching vacancies. Lane Kiffin's name is gonna come up. I wouldn't be surprised if he lays an egg at Mississippi State and just does what he always does. You know what I'm saying? They'll win this game very, very easily. I'm just really curious as to whether or not Lane Kiffin will ever be able to make it into that group, right? Into that group, with the Sabins or whatever. He's probably the closest cat that is probably still the furthest away, but he just does so good at the beginning of the season, and then at the end, when these coaching vacancies come up, his phone start ringing, he loses focus, right? Focus is his problem. And they drop games they should drop. I love to see him in the New Year's Six Bowl. He's done more for Ole Miss than anybody else has. I want to see it continue. Ole Miss big against UL Monroe.
I'm right with both of you. I got Ole Miss winning this one by another probably 30+ point win. But I think when you look at that his overall coaching career, Lane Kiffin, I don't think he can get in there, Sean. I'm just gonna go ahead and just tell you what I truly believe. I don't think he will get into it, not because he doesn't have the talent as a coach to get it, but right now the playing field is just too packed right now for him to do it. And being in the SEC, you either got to beat Georgia or you got to beat Bama to get there. And that is a tall task for anybody to do it in the same year. We saw Brian Kelly come in last year, beat Bama, but can't beat Georgia. This year, you can't beat Bama. You're not going to get a shot at Georgia. So it's like, it's really tough to get in the higher echelons of these coaches. But I think right now, Ole Miss is in a good position. I think what they still have to play for right now is, like you said, a New Year's Six Bowl. I think they definitely can get there. But at the same time, show recruiting classes that, hey, we're closing the gap. We might not be there yet, but, hey, one recruiting class can change the trajectory of this team in a lot of big ways. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to for the rest of the season for Ole Miss, but they're going to win this one easy. Hotty toddy.
All right, then moving on to our next game. We got Mississippi State taking on Southern Miss. Interesting game in the lineup right now. Mississippi State is a 14-point favorite. Mississippi State coming off just firing their coach this morning. So at less than a year after being assigned the head coach at Mississippi State, he's already been let go. And I think a lot of it has to do with just how this team has gone a full season and has no identity whatsoever about what they want to be. You look at their last game where they went up against A&M. A&M put 50 on them, and that's still after that game, they even still decided to fire their coach in Jimbo. But this is a team with Mississippi State that just ever since Will Rogers had exited this lineup, they can't pass the ball. They can't run the ball. It looks like a mess of a team. I'll be interested to see how they play, because sometimes a coaching change, depending on who the new coach or the guy that steps in for the remainder of the season kind of comes in and still kind of gives a life to the team, depending on how they react to those coaches. But this is a game that still they should be able to win. It'll be interesting if they do, or if they do go on and just lose out the rest of this season and get ready to clean house and start brand new next season. But as for me, I'm going to give them the win just because of the talent standpoint. I think you're still a more talented team than Southern Miss. Southern Miss is not a very good team looking at their record. They put up 34 in an overtime win last week against Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. And then they ended up beating ULM the week before that, where they put up 24 points. So they're able to put up some points. It'll just be interesting to see how Mississippi State plays. You got the talent to beat them, but just what will you show being that your head coach is gone out the door this late in the season?
Yeah, man, it's upsetting. To be Mississippi, I'm not a Mississippi State fan. That's what I'm saying. If I was a Mississippi State fan, the untimely death of Mike Leach really, really, really hurt, and we didn't really know what kind of impact that was really going to have. But I guess now we see. So now you got, a second year of recruiting cycles, which probably aren't going to be that good because of the unknown. The coach is gone. Can you find another, Mike Leach out there that'll take that chance to go to start for Mississippi to try to revive a program? I don't know. I'm a fan of the program. Of course, wish him well. Probably getting rid of the coach is probably the best thing that they could do. But the way these coaches now are getting paid, man, I can't feel sorry for them no more. You're getting paid $70-something million to fail, man. It's just like, hey, something's wrong with the whole thing, to be honest with you. But State should take this game, and it's a little bit of a little rivalry game in the state of Mississippi. Not too big. I think Southern Miss is a Conference USA school. Sometimes they have some pretty good squads. Most times they're just average at best. So this would be good for the students, the coaches that remain, and everybody else to get this win on Saturday for State. Hail State.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to give Mississippi State this win. I really don't know how much it's going to be, but I'm going to give them at least 3 touchdowns. I'm going to give them at least 3 touchdown victory in this one, just kind of as a last hurrah for everybody that's going to be there. Because I think, like you said, man, they're really going to just clean house. But I think when I'm looking at their coaching vacancy, there are some places that came open today that we're like, okay, some big-time coaches are going to go to these big-time schools. I hate to say it from Mississippi State, but that's not how y'all going to work out. I think y'all need to go down and get like a project coach. And a couple of names I kind of saw was like Jamie Chadwood has been at Liberty and Coastal, somebody like that who can come in there and really bring a culture change that can really lead in the next, you could say 5 years, we're going to get back on track to be a contender. But right now, I don't see any big name coaches going there. I don't see any big time recruits going there just because of all the uncertainty. So Mississippi State is really in a bottom of the barrel type situation right here. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out and fight this weekend, knowing that where their backs are right now. But right now, when you think of the rest of their season, probably not going to win more than one of these last 2 games. So let's get this one out the way. Let's finish on a high note if we possibly can, and we'll see y'all next season, Mississippi State.
Yeah. Kind of sad, ain't it?
Yeah, it is.
That's a rough situation. Rough situation. So going on to the next game, which is the next coaching vacancy in the SEC right now, which is A&M taking on Abilene Christian. Texas A&M should win this one. They should win it big. You still held on to a majority of your roster, even though you just let Jimbo go. I know it's early in the week. Only one player so far has hit the transfer portal for A&M. But from a talent standpoint, you should still handle your business for the remainder of this season, because at the end of the day, you still have a travel to LSU next week and have a chance to play a huge factor in some final rankings right now in this season. And you've got the talent still to do it. I'll tell you what, this is another team, and I don't know if since we know the game is going to be easy, I don't know if we want to get into it real quick about whether what job. This is a very, from a coaching standpoint, from the chat room standpoint, a lot of fans don't see this as a giant, like monstrous job that's available. But from the coaching and behind the scenes, a lot of people are saying this is a big time open vacancy right now in the college football world, in the sense of you've got all the money in the world, you've got the recruiting tools that you need already in place. Like everything is here in place at A&M for you to take that next step. It's just Jimbo couldn't get it done with the staff that he had put together here at A&M. But from a talent standpoint, from a facilities, from money, from donors, you got everything you need right now to take the next step. You're just looking for the right coach to be in the right job. Because, you know, it wasn't too long ago, a couple years ago, this was the #1 recruiting class in the country. You know, so you've got talent already here, and you just need the right guy to do it. And it'll be interesting to see what names come up for this position coming up in the next couple of weeks and at the end of the season, especially with the early portal window opening at the beginning of December. So it's going to be an interesting look, and this is going to be an interesting situation to keep an eye on. You still going to a bowl game. You're already at 6 wins. You got a chance to upset LSU. So, I mean, this team still has a good little bit to play for this year. I do agree with the mindset of going ahead and pulling the plug on Jimbo because of the fact that I hate you get into coaching decisions and you're like, all right, well, we want to fire our coach at the end of the year, but you let them play out the rest of the year. Then they pull up an upset on LSU and you're like, all right, well, we got to hang on to a guy that really we should have let go ahead of time. And then you ride into next year and you do with the same thing all over again instead of hitting on a coach that you would want right now. But the thing with A&M in this coaching search is, who else can you go get? You've gone with the local guy. You've gone with the big name hire in Jimbo, who's had a national championship before. To me, it's kind of like, all right, who do you hire at A&M, or who do you attract to A&M to come take over this program to try to take you to that next level? I don't know if there's another Brian Kelly out there like what happened with him at LSU, but it's going to be real interesting to see what this team and this organization does going forward.
Yeah, I think from what I've read, and this is typical, coach speak or president speak rather, but they figure out, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish here, right? Of course, we want to win national championships. Yes, we want to be up there in education, graduation rate and all this stuff, yada yada yada. At the end of the day, we all know this is about the SEC West, winning it and getting into the college football playoff. That's all this is about. Now, what does that criteria look like? Well, go over there to Tuscaloosa and look and see what that looks like. Go over to Georgia and see what that looks like. They have the recipes to get this stuff done. Now, A&M has everything else to get it done but the recipe. They got the money. They just, a few years ago, they spent over $500 million renovating their stadium. That's more money than like some NFL teams pay for brand new stadiums. You know what I'm saying? They got so much money, so much influence, so much power. But they're missing that guy. They're missing that coach. So whoever they've got that's leading this search needs to look for somebody, that's got a proven track record, not just winning, but winning championships. If I'm A&M, you are Texas A&M. I like Dan Lanning. I'm hearing his name a lot. But what has he done? He's a hot new coach. I think Oregon is where he needs to be. A guy like Sark, he's on his way. Who you gonna get? Dabo? Now he probably fits the criteria based on wins and championships, this and that, whatever. But what's he done for anybody lately, right? So I'm assuming they've got some sort of thing, some sort of idea. I think every coach or every president of university has a list in his drawer of names to replace his or her current head coach in whatever sport it is that they're actually playing. So A&M's not dumb. They were absolutely right for getting rid of Jimbo. I said it very, very early. I didn't know if he was going to make it out of this season. The schedule was just too hard, and I didn't think they were that good. They'll rally the troops and they'll win this game this weekend, but they got a long hill to climb. And I'd hate to think that they have to go out there and get a younger, unproven coach to come out here, even with the open checkbook. I don't know. I just A&M is just, it's a head scratcher because everything else but the recipe is there. And I just don't know why. But I got A&M big. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah, I think I like your point on everything you said right there, Sean. I'm 100% agreeing with you. This coaching job is going to be a huge topic of discussion. But the bright side of this thing is by January, some NFL coaches are going to get laid off. They might be able to go pick one out of the NFL to make it a little bit easier for them to get this good. I think college right now, unless you steal somebody, I don't think there's that right head coach in the free agent market for head coaches to go get one. So That's my standpoint on the head coaching job. Rather than the rest of their season, you still got, to me, a lot to play for to keep the wagon going in the right direction. I'm like, okay, cool. The season didn't pan out how you wanted it to because of your head coach, if I be honest with you. But the talent on the team, you cannot lose that talent, and you cannot have people start decommitting because of a sandstorm that comes through and just wipes Texas A&M completely momentum off the map. So to me, I think you're going to win this game, and I think you have to put a good foot forward against LSU. I don't think they're going to beat LSU. We're going to talk about that next week, but they have to put a good foot forward in that game to really say, hey, we still do have all these pieces except for the recipe. You know, we still have to be able to hold that front together. And I think right now they're in a position where it can either go really, really well for Texas A&M in the next 4 to 5 months, or a thing can be tail spinning in the next 4 to 5 months. So it's really going to be an eye-opener. It's going to be something to watch. Get your popcorn ready. Keep it crisp. Keep it hot, because it's going to be a entertaining summer for Texas A&M, especially with that open checkbook. So to me, get a good win this weekend, and we'll see y'all next week when we talk about LSU.
All right, moving on. We got probably one of my most interesting games of this weekend. It's going to be Tennessee at home taking on Georgia. 3:30 slot. This game to me is going to have more so to do with Georgia than it will have to do with Tennessee. I think Georgia has finally hit their stride. You're seeing the Georgia that's coming into every game and dominating from the kickoff to the end of the game, where they're just putting together complete games now. Coming off that game against actually it's been since the Florida game. The Florida game, they gave up that opening touchdown, but ever since then they have not looked back at teams. You know, you got into kind of a bit of a fight against Missouri, and then you just turned out to be too much. But Ole Miss, you hopped on them early and then never looked back. And I think it's going to be the same thing going into this week against Tennessee. I think that offense for Georgia right now is humming. Everybody's in sync with one another. Now you got Brock Bowers back in the mix last week, and it seems like everybody's playing complementary football right now and feeding off each other, because as soon as you zone in on stopping one guy, another guy pops. They finally got their running game going now with Edwards. Rushing game looks good. O-line looks good. Defense is still looking good right now for Georgia. And I think this is just a bad matchup for Tennessee, especially coming off of how you looked against Missouri. And Missouri being not as good of a team as Georgia, I think it says a lot. I don't think if you're Joe Milton, you have no room for error when it comes to passing the ball. This defense is opportunistic. They'll hop on you. This D-line is already humming right now. I think it's actually going to be, I know Georgia's right now a 10.5-point favorite, but I think Georgia's going to win this probably by a minimum of 14 points, maybe even 3 touchdowns going into this one. And it's really for a Tennessee team that was humming and had a lot going for them in the middle of the season to probably looking at finishing with 8 wins, finishing 8-4 right now is going to be something really to look at for this Tennessee team going forward and what they look like going into the offseason. But Georgia is humming. They need this week. And then a get-right game against Georgia Tech before heading to Atlanta to take on Bama. This is their final, real test before the SEC championship game. But Georgia looks like the real deal, and I got them big in this one.
It looked fantastic, if you ask me. And that's even with Bowers back, I think they would have done the same thing if he wasn't there. You know what I mean? Georgia is just They've got all 3 phases. They're executing very, very well. They don't beat themselves. They just don't beat themselves. It's like when you see them get into a 3rd and 6 or a 3rd and 7, you just kind of have all the confidence in the world to know that they're going to convert. I think they're the number 1 statistically. I think they're number 1 in the country in 3rd down conversions, but they're top 3 on defense. On getting off the field on 3rd down. It's just they just even when they were playing close games against Auburn and and not looking good, behind the scenes they're finding their footing. They're growing confidence. Carson Beck is getting confident, right? So I think the end of this season is going to really shape up into something really special in the Southeastern Conference, especially in Atlanta. Early in December, but Right now, Georgia is by far the best team in the country, and I would have them number one
Yes.
tomorrow. I would slide Michigan on, Michigan, slide them on down. I was impressed by Michigan. I know we're not talking about them right now, but they did impress me with their physicality and run game, seems like nature. And that's stuff that Georgia may not do the best. So, it's going to be really good. Georgia wins this game in a landslide. Glad to see Brock Bowers back. And also glad to see Georgia humming, like you said. This all makes the SEC championship game even more exciting to talk about and get ready to watch. So I can't wait.
I'm right there with both of y'all. This week right here is going to be very, very easy for Georgia, I think so, because ever since I saw Tennessee play against Bama, I just realized that they're not the team that they was last year, nowhere near it. They don't have players like they did last year, nowhere near it. Even if they did have that team last year, they probably would still get their ass whooped against Georgia right now because that's how good Georgia looks. And I think the main key to this, there's so many keys to Georgia's success, but if you can't stop them from running that ball, you're never going to have an opportunity to beat them. And I feel like it has to be put on Carson Beck to go out there and throw for 300-something yards in that type of game where there's no running back involved that can really get his yards. And I just don't see Tennessee being that team that can slow down Georgia's run game. They're going to get ran all over just like Ole Miss did, and it's not going to be pretty for them. But looking at the big picture of this, I've been preaching for the last maybe month that there's going to be a time that this Georgia team is going to take a loss. And breaking news, everybody, it's still here to come. And I promise you it's going to come. I think they're going to end the season with at least one loss, but it's not going to be this week right here against Tennessee. So in that aspect of it, I'm going to leave everybody up with suspicion, mystery about what I'm going to say next. And this week is going to be a cakewalk for Georgia. Go Dogs in this one right here. Whoop Tennessee's ass for me in person.
Yeah. And look, Tennessee was way better last year.
Right.
And Georgia was also way better than they are. Right. And Georgia whooped their ass last year. It's just not going to end well.
Yeah, the only way I can see Tennessee even being in this game is if, that stadium just is going crazy and Georgia does start doing something we haven't seen all year, which is start hurting themselves. That's the only way that Tennessee's going to have an opportunity to stay in this game. But to me, there's nothing that the Tennessee sideline can do to stay in this game. And that's a bad place to be in. When you say, hey, we could throw everything we got. Yeah. It's still going to chink their armor and not one little bit. And it's going to be something that I think that a lot of fans are going to get woken up with by looking at these last month for Georgia and saying, okay, we were wrong a lot through the season, saying that they're not the team that we thought it was. To me, they are the number one team in the country. There's nothing that Ohio State has done that looks better than Georgia in this last month. Nothing Michigan has done, even though Michigan's the cheaters. Get them out of here already. They're cheating already. Get them out of here. I ain't even trying to have that discussion. But look, they shouldn't even be in the discussion of it. And Florida State, no, they don't have anything to beat Georgia right now. So this is the number one team in the country. You got number one team in the country coming into town to Tennessee, and let's see what they're going to do. I think it's going to be a whole lot of nothing, but let's see.
Let's see. Yep. Next game coming up, we got Auburn at home taking on New Mexico State. Hey, Auburn impressed me a ton against Arkansas last week. And I don't know if that had more to do with Arkansas and even that being on the road at Arkansas and still put up the points that they did. And, it came out today from a lot of the players saying, hey, we had the opportunities to score more, but we decided to just run the ball, get the clock done with late in that game. But this Auburn team, I tell you, this is something to build on. And it made it 6 wins. You're going to a bowl game, year one under Hugh Freeze. You already have everything you need to accomplish really this season to be a successful season in my eyes. It's done. You're making it to a bowl game. You still got Bama in front of you, but I don't think that'll be much of a contest. I think they'll revert back to being the Auburn that we saw against LSU, where you put up 18 points and you lose that game big. But still, this is a very big step for them to go ahead and get in this bowl game for them after beating Arkansas last week. Because those all that's doing is helping you in recruiting and helping you for the young guys that you already have on the team by getting those extra practices for the bowl game to get to a bowl game. or leading up into a bowl game. So it'll be interesting to see how they play. I think they'll feed off of that win last week and get to a 4-game win streak heading into the Bama week, rivalry week. And I tell you what, it's another team just in the recruiting trail right now to keep an eye on in year one of the Freeze era right there in Auburn.
Listen, we knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. You know, we all know I'm not a fan of Auburn. I am a fan of Hugh Freeze. So at some point in time, I'm going to have to figure out some kind of way to marry the two. But it's happening. Now, granted, he's not doing it against the best of competition, but he is actually doing it, right? So he's got the quarterback calm down a little bit. I think if I had to guess, I would have to say, because right before Auburn went on this little streak they got going on right here, there was some questions about the play calling and whether Hugh Freeze was going to get involved in that a little bit, because he basically gave the keys to his offensive coordinator. Well, I hadn't read much about it, but I would have to say that Hugh Freeze probably did a little something to get himself involved and insert himself into that offense a little more than he was prior to. Not that it would have made a huge difference if he had done it earlier, but he has done a great job of keeping his team together, keeping the locker room together, waiting for this run to occur to give them enough confidence to at least allow Alabama to come in and play them and try to play like, you know, some inspired type football. So for those things, I think Hugh Freeze is doing exactly what we all thought he was going to do. Another W for Aubrey coming up here, a confidence builder going into the Bama game. They won't win that game, but they will have confidence. So, you know, I'm curiously just kind of sitting back watching to see, you know, what Hugh Freeze is going to do here. Next year is going to be a different story, but Saturday, he's going to get another win, man.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Saturday is going to be a big day for Auburn. I think they're going to keep this win streak going that they have right now. But I think when you look at last week's game, man, I think that has more to do with Arkansas than it does Auburn. Because Arkansas let Auburn put up almost 350-something yards rushing. And that just is embarrassing as an overall team. I mean, I don't know how you let that happen. Everybody who ran the ball got big yards. So I think that was more about Arkansas's deficiencies than Auburn's efficiencies. But to me, Auburn is an interesting team that's going to have an interesting offseason. The transfer portal period opens up soon, and I'm just going to be looking at quarterbacks that's going to go down there in Auburn and try to get a real shot, because that's what I really think they missed this year is just consistent quarterback play. You can even see it in their wins. When Peyton Thorne does what he needs to do, they get good wins. But can he do it every single week? And it's just not been the case this year. But I think one funny note about last week was Robbie Ashford got one throw in. That thing turned into an interception. They say, you're going to sit your butt down for the rest of the season. This ball. And it's like, we're going to let you run it. So I think that right there was funny. But this week right here should be a convincing win. I just hope Auburn puts the pieces together. And I do want Auburn to actually give Bama a good run. I want them to give Bama a good test, because I think we need to see what Bama's going to do against a team that's going to come at them with everything they got one more time this season, and to be able to be prepared for whatever Georgia's going to throw at you. So, to me, Auburn, you got a success on this season. This season went as successful as it possibly could go. Go win your bowl game and take this momentum to the next year. But right now, this one's going to be an easy win for Auburn going into Saturday.
Yep. All right, moving into a night game, we got Missouri at home taking on Florida. Hey, I'll tell you what, from this Florida team right now, they have given up their opportunity to go to a bowl game this season. They're not going to one. You got all the momentum behind you during this season after taking the loss to Utah and then just giving it all away. Your last chance to get your last win of the season was against Arkansas at home, and you let that go out the window in an overtime game. To those boys. So next you got Missouri right now, who's humming, who looks like a top 10 team right now that you're getting ready to go play. They probably gonna put 40 on you real quick. And then after that, you gotta take on Florida State at home. So you're not getting another win. This season is ending like the last couple of seasons have ended for you in Florida as a Florida Gator team. And But I think this game is, from looking at it from Missouri standpoint, Missouri looks like a very good team. They've surprised the heck out of me this year in their fight. Now, they weren't able to compete with like LSU, and they competed with LSU, but against in the Georgia game, you kind of hung in there for a little bit, but it still looked like you're out of class. But this season is going to do nothing but build momentum for that program, especially in the recruiting trail, in the player development, off season. You're going to be a very attractive team right now in the transfer portal for other high caliber players to come in. It's just going to be very interesting to see how they handle this success. But you should finish out this season. If you're Mizzou, you should win out, especially with Arkansas coming up next weekend for rivalry week. But this running back they got for him looks like a world-class. He's a Division II guy that transferred in, looks like a top back in the country, let alone the SEC. Luther Burden is still one of the top wide receiving threats in the SEC and in the country. And Brady Cook looks like a monster right now at quarterback for that team. And that defense is flying around humming as well. So this is going to be, I don't think this is a very good ball game. The line right now is at 11.5. I think it'll be bigger than that. I give Missouri the 14-point win in this one easily.
I can't say that I disagree. Florida is absolutely a dumpster fire right now. And as I predicted at the beginning of the season, now they won more games than I originally predicted they were going to win, but they still suck. And Billy Napier may be in the same position with as Jimbo was at the beginning of next year. I think it was year 3, year 4 for him, and he just I think it's year 3, but I don't see any signs of Florida getting any better under Napier. The schedule next year, I know we ain't talking about next year, but
it's bad.
If anybody decides y'all want to go and take a peek at Florida's schedule next year, it's got to be the toughest schedule in the country. And if Napier's no better than he was this year, he's gone after next year. So with that being said, does Florida, do they end up with a vacancy knowing what's going to happen next year, right? Do you do it now, or do you wait for the inevitable to happen and you do it when the other schools aren't open? I don't know. This game, Missouri, I like them a lot. I like Brady Cook, especially when he is using his legs.
Yeah.
He is a very efficient quarterback. He's a very efficient quarterback. This guy would start for, 95% of the teams in the country right now. You know what I'm saying? He's a really, really good quarterback. Strong arm, his receivers fight for the ball. I like everything that Missouri's doing. There's no reason in the world why I think they should slip up against a lowly Florida this weekend. I got Missouri by 21.
I'm right there with both of you. I think Missouri's going to take this one pretty convincingly. To me, I'm right there with y'all. Missouri has been impressive. They really have been impressive. But my biggest thing about Missouri going forward is, can y'all have what it takes to put back-to-back seasons like this? Because you're really in a position to where you pretty much solidified that number 2 spot in the East. Now, year to year is going to be interesting. I don't think they're ever going to get to the point where they can beat Georgia, top Georgia off, unless they just have a landslide of talent just fall off, which is not going to happen. But Missouri has proven to me that, hey, we are clear to compete in the SEC. And that's a big-time statement. That's a big-time season to have put that together. So to me, finish the season strong. I think you're also in contention of getting a top-tier bowl game this year, which will put some ices on this cake that you're having. But quarterback play has been great. Running back play has been great. Receiver play has been great. And your defense has kept y'all in a position where you can have these big-time games. So all the kudos to Missouri. Whoop Florida's ass, and let's keep this season going, and let's finish off on a high note, because you have everything right here in front of you that you really want outside the SEC championship. But a great bowl probability. So keep things pushing, keep things rolling. Go Mizzou.
Yep. Next game, we got Arkansas at home taking on FIU. Hey, Arkansas is lucky. I'm telling you, they're extremely lucky that they are playing this FIU team who seems like they just cannot score any points on anybody this season. You should get this win. You still got your head coach, Sam Pittman, but I've heard all the whispers and whatnot. And it seems like he's the next guy that will be out in the SEC. As far as the rumor mill goes and behind the scenes talks goes, a lot of people are discussing that right now. But this should be a kind of like a feel-good game. I mean, you're favored by 30. this should be one that you kind of get your hopes up, be like, hey, let the crowd come out and enjoy the last win of the season to get you to 4 wins before you got to take on Missouri next week. But yeah, outside of that, I don't think there's much else that Arkansas has to play for. They just look like a team that is just defeated emotionally, morally. They don't look like they get excited for any games. The only game they were able to get excited for was at Florida, and that's because Florida is just Florida, what you just got done talking about. But yeah, this game should be over early. Go out there and enjoy it, fellas. This last win, and get ready to see what's going to happen this offseason and get ready for next season.
Yeah, and hopefully they handle Arkansas. I mean, FIU, like I said, field goal game, all that. That's what needs to happen. But if for some reason that does not happen, does Sam Pittman lose his job on Sunday? Right? I mean, possible.
This one, yes.
Yeah, if you lose this one, I think he's done right now. You know what I'm saying? He wins this one and competes against Missouri. I think you could maybe say, okay, well, he's safe, but I'm gonna give you a little more rope. But I like Sam Pittman, I do. For whatever reason, he just has not found the recipe this year. You talk about the need to make adjustments this late in the season. Kind of gives me the idea that you didn't recognize you needed to make adjustments earlier in the season. I don't know why we talk about adjustments this late, right? So I don't know, but they need to win this game. They should win this game. But I'm not going to sit up here and say they're going to blow FIU out, even though FIU cannot score. I'm going to go Arkansas with this one. 13 points, man. That's it. It's going to be tricky somewhere in the middle of the game. It's going to be a little tricky. KJ Jefferson will pull this one out, but this won't be over until the fourth quarter.
I'm right there with both of y'all. To me, Arkansas is a team that just all the air went out the balloon so early in the season. And I don't think it's something that anybody really predicted. Looking at KJ Jefferson, I thought he was going to be a better prospect than he was this year, but overall, to me, they just don't have it to get it done. And that does shock me when it comes to their head coach. And I thought he would be able to put a decent team together based on how they looked last season. So to me, I hope they get this win. Do I know if they are going to get this win? No, I don't. I'm right there with Sean. I think they're going to hit 20 based on a couple of field goals, opportunities that they're going to have to hit. But let's say they're going to win this game, and let's say they give Missouri a shot, a chance, a challenge. I still think the head coach is gone. Just because it's that time where if you're not trending in the right direction, especially how this, college football is changing, you got to be able to make the change now. Because next you're going into the 12-team playoffs, a lot of teams are going to have opportunities to really make some noise. And if you're outside of that 12, or even not even ranked, you got to clean your slate. You got to wipe the things from scratch. So I think Arkansas is going to be one of those teams to where the wheels haven't fallen off completely yet. You got rolling on one last wheel, but it's going to fall off between these next 2 weeks and getting your head coach fired. And I think from there, we're going to see what this offseason is going to look like for Arkansas. So to me, get your last win of the season right here. End things as best you possibly can, but get ready for a big change coming to Arkansas.
All right, moving on to our next one. Night game. Will it be South Carolina taking on Kentucky? This game to me is huge right now from a South Carolina standpoint. Right now, you are on a 2-game win streak. You need to win your last 2 to make it to a bowl game and salvage this season for the future of your program. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I'm taking South Carolina in this one. This game opened as a 3-point favorite for Kentucky. It's down to a 1.5-point favorite for Kentucky still. Very much a draw, and I think that very much has to do with it being a 7:30 game in Williams-Brice late in the season against South Carolina and Shane Beamer, which is where you never want to play against at the end of a year. I'll tell you what. the key to this one, I think, more so has to do with South Carolina has finally kind of put it together offensively, which they needed to, because you were struggling a little bit to score points. And I think every team that struggles like they have gets to that point where you need that kind of cupcake game to kind of break the mold, break the cycle that you were in and the trouble you were having. And for South Carolina, that was the Jacksonville State game where you finally got some play calls going away, you got some confidence building, and you carried that on into the Vanderbilt game. And now I feel like they can also carry that over into the Kentucky game also. Kentucky, to me, just still seems like a team that cannot they can't throw the ball. Devin Leary is not the guy at quarterback for them. Looking at him against Bama, and I'm not comparing South Carolina's defense to Bama's defense because South Carolina's secondary is still extremely suspect. But from a standpoint of South Carolina is good when they have to focus on doing one thing. When they want to go out and stop the run, they'll go out and stop the run. If they want to stop the pass, they'll stop the pass, but then they'll let the other one go. In this game, you have to go into this mindset of, all right, we want to stop Ray Davis from rushing the ball. He's their motor on offense. If you stop him, everything else shuts down. And dare Devin Leary to say, I dare you to beat us throwing the football. And I think they will not be able to do it. I think the crowd will be too much for them. The environment will be too much for them. And I think Kentucky's getting ready to go on a 2-game losing streak, especially with going to Louisville, who's a very dangerous team next week. But I think Spencer's on a hot streak right now, ready to finish off his collegiate experience right now. I think he's only going to play this game and the next one. If we make it to a bowl game, I think he opts out and gets ready for the NFL. But you found your rushing game in Mario Anderson. Xavier Legette is back and looking fantastic out at receiver, just eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark. You've got all of your complementary weapons playing well because you had that get-right game against Jacksonville State and against Vanderbilt. So everything just seems to be humming for South Carolina offensively and defensively. You broke the mold on defense with not getting takeaways. You've gotten, I think, 5 or 6 in the last 2 games alone. You've got your special teams blocks last week. It just seems like everything's rolling in the right direction for South Carolina at the right time to get you to a bowl game, to get through Kentucky, and then take care of Clemson next week. We'll get into that one next week. But for Kentucky, on the other side of it, you've only won 1 game as Kentucky in your last 5 games, and that's against Mississippi State. I think they just emotionally, I think they feel it in the locker room. I think it's heavy right now. You're not playing good football. You're at the point now where you've used up all your free tokens for free games and get right games at the beginning of the season. And now you're going into your real competition, which we all brought it up when they get into SEC play. When we talked about it earlier in the season, what are you going to look like? And they've just kind of fallen apart from that standpoint. They don't got the right guy in at quarterback. And I think the crowd, the environment, a hot South Carolina team is just too much for this Kentucky team going on the road at night in Willie B.
Yeah, there's too much wrong with Kentucky. Now, Bama was able to get an immense amount of pressure on Leary. And I thought Leary was better than what he showed us this past weekend, right? And it could have been the defensive line. Kevin Steele at Alabama, he threw the kitchen sink at him multiple times on pressure downs. He threw the kitchen sink at him, and he was not able to stand there and deliver a ball. He was throwing the ball early. It just didn't look good. Like all his confidence is just gone. This game is at night in Columbia. The fact that it's the night game in Columbia, Rattler's got a lot to prove. Remember, Rattler, this is the type of game to where he can impress pro scouts, and I'm sure y'all probably hear about this more than I do, but I'm sure that there have been some scouts from certain teams at some of these games watching Rattler as an NFL future prospect. So he knows that. Everybody in the locker room knows that Rattler is a team guy, but at night with that when y'all start doing that, when y'all start doing all that at night, hey man, you bring a wounded duck into that situation, man, it's over. I got South Carolina by 17, easy.
I'm right there with both of you. I think South Carolina's going to win this game, but I think it is up to them to take it from Kentucky.
Yeah.
I don't think Kentucky's going to come in there and give them just an easy, lay on their back type win. But to me, I think South Carolina just has to stay on this hot streak. But you got to take care of the ball. I think if you turn this ball over at least twice, this game is going in the opposite direction. So to me, it's all in South Carolina's hands. I got about a 10-point victory just because I think South Carolina's going to make certain mistakes that Kentucky's going to take advantage of. But to me, South Carolina has the momentum that Kentucky just does not. I think Kentucky is fully exhausted with their season, and they're just trying to get to the finish line. But they've already got their bowl game locked up. That's pretty much as best they're going to get to this season. I don't think there's truly too much more to play for, Van. So when I think it's Kentucky, I'm right there with you. They probably going to end the season off on a losing streak, which is not great. But to me, South Carolina has all the momentum in the world to fight for their season. They're fighting for a bowl game. They have opportunity to grab that bowl game, and the way Kentucky looks and the way Clemson looks right now. It's two winnable games coming up against you. So I think Beamer has this team very focused. I think the last 2 weeks have pretty much played into South Carolina's hands perfectly. And I know the season hasn't played out perfectly how they wanted to, but to me, hey, everything's still coming for you to put momentum off of. And you got things that really can end the season on a high note, rather than people looking at how the season went wrong. So to me, South Carolina take advantage of this time, take advantage of this moment, and go ahead and upset some people and, end some seasons off on a high note. That's how I want to be for South Carolina. Go Cox on this one.
Yeah. And then our last game of the night is going to be LSU at home taking on Georgia State. LSU going into this one as a 31-point favorite. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I've got Jaden Daniels as my Heisman pick right now. This dude is showing out number-wise, stat-wise. He still puts himself in some very dangerous situations, but I think he's going to be, in my opinion, until I see something else from one of these other guys consistently, from a game in and game out aspect, I think he's going to be maybe the first Heisman winner that won't be in the college football playoff since Lamar. I think it was Lamar was the last guy that wasn't in the championship.
Caleb was last year.
Who was
Caleb
it?
Caleb Williams.
That's right. Okay. But yeah, I'm telling you, this game should be an easy game for them. I think it'll be another stat fest, just like how it was against Florida. Defense should look fairly well. I mean, you let Florida put 35 on you, but Florida's a better offense than Georgia State is. But I got LSU big in this one, especially being at home, night game in that environment. I think fans will still show out and see your team before you got to take on A&M the following week. But LSU big in this one.
Yeah, man, this is just one little piece of the puzzle that's in the way of a drumming against A&M next week. Unless your name is Ole Miss, Alabama, Florida State, they have done a really good job of beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. I did expect more from LSU this season, but it became relatively apparent after the LSU game that they had a lot of defensive issues, because when they lost game week 4 to Arkansas, we still didn't really know that Arkansas was as bad as they actually are, right? Again, I'll say it. It's amazing to me how Brian Kelly and in the state of Louisiana can wheel out a defense that cannot stop anybody. But Jay Daniels and his offense, Malik Neighbors, those receivers, the running backs, whoever put the offense together did a wonderful job. They'll probably hang 60 points on Georgia State this weekend. They have no shot at all. And neither does A&M. And hopefully these last 2 wins will have LSU on a 3-game winning streak. They could, possibly, depending on if Lane Kiffin does what Lane Kiffin does, end up the second best team in the West, which could possibly lead them into a New Year's Six bowl at some particular point in time, depending on how these bowls view LSU. But a complete drumming at home. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. LSU all the way.
Yeah, I'm right there with both of y'all. I'm on LSU all the way, but I want LSU on a challenge, especially Jaden Daniels. To me, right now, I just don't think he's going to get Heisman, I know he's going to be in that room, but to me, I think this is going to be another wide receiver taking this home, and Marvin Harrison Jr. if he does what he has to do, because he's going to have his Heisman moment against Michigan. He's going to have a top 10, top team in the country coming to town, and it says, if you've been doing what you've been doing everybody else against Michigan's defense, you're probably going to take the Heisman Trophy home as being just a wide receiver. But to me, their losses hold him away from the Heisman Trophy. And I just, it's tough to even say that. But if we're just looking at a stat line, yeah, he's got it. But I know that really that plays into the factor of team overall success. So LSU on a high note. But I want to see if he can get to 50 touchdowns. I know that means he's right now at total that's 38. That means you got to get 6 and 6 to get there. But I think if he does that, that'll be something that'll be truly impressive that I think would be sensational. And I think at that point, you got to give it to him if he can eclipse that. Because I think he's going to have over 3,500 passing yards. He might even be over 3,500 now, but he's going to get over 1,000 yards rushing. If you can put up a 50 touchdown season, I think that's something that you can definitely play for when he has a skill set to do it. So it's not going to be something that's going to be too far-fetched, but that'll be interesting for LSU. But win this game easily by a landslide, beat Texas A&M next week in a landslide, and I think overall your season's going to end on a high note and get that big-time bowl that you were looking for. So LSU, you're trending up right now. I think y'all got whooped by Bama, so roll time for y'all.
All right. Well, thank everybody for tuning in this week. We're going to get with you next week. Tune in. Well, whenever this comes out, it'll already be done, but we're going to do the live video tomorrow going into the college football playoff ranking show. Give y'all our live feedback for that. But until then, we'll catch y'all next time.
Roll time.
Roll time.